Hello everybody, welcome to Totally Tabled. My name is Shaggy, and today I'm going to be running down my quick first impressions of Halls of Hegra. I've done a full playthrough on my channel, so if you haven't watched that, please go check it out, because in this video, I'm going to assume you've either watched that playthrough or you know how Halls of Hegra plays. Now, I think I might have spoiled this in the thumbnail of this video, but yes, Halls of Hegra is my current frontrunner for Solo Game of the Year. I still have quite a few big titles to play, but for right now, I've just really had a great time with this game. I'm not really a war gamer, and I don't really like war as a theme for a game. It's just not something I'm very interested in. You know, you start throwing in some dragons and some robots or something, and then you got my interest. So typically this game would have just flown under my radar and, completely passed me by. But somehow I heard, and I can't even remember where I heard this, but I heard that some of the mechanisms in the game were inspired by Robinson Crusoe and this war of mine. Well, okay, now you've got my attention. Your game was inspired by what I consider to be the best solo game of all time. All right, I'm going to take a closer look. So when this finally hit my table for the first time, Robinson Crusoe was in my mind. But so was another game, and that game is Frostpunk. Frostpunk is my game of the year of 2022. It's a game I absolutely adore, and it was also inspired by Robinson Crusoe and this war of mine. So much so that it's almost like a spiritual successor, or if Robinson Crusoe and this war of mine had a baby that, grew up to be a city planner, right? That would be Frostpunk. So I had that in my mind, and really the long and short of what I'm trying to say here is this really isn't like Robinson Crusoe or this war of mine. There's certainly some individual mechanisms that you can tell were, maybe inspired, like, the suspicion track feels a lot like the noise track from this war of mine. You have worker placement, you have a morale track, there's these echoes from Robinson Crusoe, but the worker placement doesn't work like Robinson Crusoe's. In fact, it really reminded me more, in a weird way, of Anachrony. It's not a perfect comparison, but, the idea of having different types of workers, some of them can't do certain actions, and some do certain actions even better. And when you use them, they get tired. You have to spend resources to refresh them. Yeah, it was giving me an Anachrony kind of vibe, minus all the mechs. But what this doesn't have is some of the core features of those games, which is, an emphasis on storytelling, right? We're not getting any of that like you get in this war of mine, and you're not getting sort of the scenario-based gameplay and the emergent storytelling like you're getting from Robinson Crusoe. Halls of Hegra is trying to tell one story. You are playing through a story. Things are going to happen slightly differently. You can choose to focus on slightly different things, and there will definitely be surprises, right? I mean, if you saw the playthrough, there were things that happened in the playthrough that I hadn't seen before in other games, and they added some nice narrative, and they definitely affected the strategy and stuff, but for the most part, you're kind of playing through the same story. So this game has nowhere near the variability of a game like Robinson Crusoe. For some people, that might mean that it lacks a little bit of replayability. Those two things aren't necessarily the same. For me, having the slightly different events come out, having different collections of workers who do different things, having the different modules come out, drawing different stuff from the hit bag, and all that adds enough for me to make it exciting and makes me want to play again and again. I find the game to be pretty addictive. But I think for some people that might feel like a lack of replayability. And so I want to put that out there. If that's something that you think might bother you, then you may want to be careful of that for this game. I tend to not be someone who, plays a game 50 times in a row. So it's not a concern for me. The other thing to note is that this isn't a traditional war game, right? This is much more of a Euro game with worker placement and bag building, and ultimately a really fun tower defense core to the game. You're managing resources, and you're managing your workers and their morale. It all comes together and works together really great. But my favorite thing about the game by far is just the way that it really ratchets up the tension. You start in that mobilization phase, you're getting some more workers, you're building up, and then boom, once that first attack starts, suddenly you have more things to worry about, you have more difficult decisions, you can't do everything you want to do. You're doing a little bit of push your luck. And then as soon as those sieges start happening, man, it gets tough. The tension just skyrockets. Things start going wrong and you really start hanging on, holding on as best as you can. I find this game to be extremely difficult. Survival is tough, and it has one of those endings where it's just about really trying to hang on, right? Just trying to wait out the clock as everything is just falling apart. Not everyone is going to like that kind of arc, right? It's got that survival arc, and that's something that I really love. It's the same thing that you have in those other survival games that we keep talking about. I enjoy that immensely. And there's definitely luck involved. You're rolling dice a lot. You're pulling things out of a bag. You know, it doesn't matter how much good stuff you seed into those bags. Sometimes you're just pulling out the bad things and you're just getting unlucky. That sort of stuff's going to happen. I never felt like it was unfair. You'll have good luck and bad luck. It seems to even out overall. You know, you're going to have easier games or harder games depending on how things go. But to me, that just adds to the tension, adds to the excitement. And again, it never felt unfair. There's just one little tiny exception to that, and that is when you're drawing from that recruit bag. There's a bit of a push your luck mechanism involved in that. But honestly, it's just possible to just get super unlucky and at the very beginning of the game, just draw one of those doubt tokens. And the difference between getting just one new recruit and 4 new recruits right there at the beginning is pretty drastic. That can be a pretty big swing of luck, and it doesn't feel that great. I do kind of wish that that recruit bag was handled a little bit differently. My personal opinion, and look, I'm not a game designer, so me throwing out game design ideas is completely meaningless, but I would have liked it to have been something a little bit more like we always draw 4 tokens out of the bag, but sometimes you might draw those doubt tokens. You know, you would just toss those away, so it means like you're recruiting less because of those doubt. That would probably feel a little bit more fair because then you would usually be drawing at least 2 to 4. Maybe have more doubt tokens in there at the beginning, and then when you draw them, you actually get to discard them. So it doesn't feel so bad till you draw, you know, the fact that you draw one, okay, I'm only gonna get 1 recruit this time, and then I gotta put the doubt back in the bag. It's just, it feels pretty punishing at times, and that feels real swingy, especially early in the game. But other than that, I love the idea of building the bag up, especially the hit bag, throwing in miss tokens in there, right? Having the decision to attack the airport so you can get rid of some of those tokens that are going to be filling up that hit bag. In this playthrough, I completely ignored those planes, and you saw in part 3 what happened. Those things are incredibly punishing. But then the fact that you can take out the cannons so that you're drawing fewer chits out of that hit bag, those are great decisions. And I love the idea that when you repair some of the damage from, you know, the guns or the walls or whatever, it goes into the hit bag. So you might draw it back out and those things might get re-damaged. That is really cool. It just works so well. And I also love sending out your workers onto that map to do the supply runs, how the weather can change their movement, and how you can attack the different patrols, or you can try to sneak by to, you know, grab the stuff and bring it back to get your supplies that you desperately need. Oh man, it's just a blast. I think this is the type of game that could really appeal to a lot of gamers. I mean, if you like worker placement games, or if you like tower defense games, or maybe you're into traditional war games and you want something a little bit different, even if you're not a solo gamer, I think this could really be a game for, you know, gamers who don't typically play solo. This might be a solo game that really appeals to them. And if you are a solo gamer, then you really got to check this one out. It is long. Keep that in mind. It's long and, you know, there's a lot going on, but I think the rulebook is terrific. Everything makes sense. Everything flows just perfectly. So I really hope that this gets the attention that it deserves. And I'm trying to do my part, but check out Halls of Hegra. It gets my highest recommendation. That's it for me. Thank you so much for watching, and goodbye.